Moonlight hits a silver bullet. And somewhere in pop culture, a werewolf is having a very bad night. But here's the weird part. Even if you've never fired a silver bullet in your life, silver is probably in your pocket, on your desk, in your phone, in your car. And if you've ever seen a photo on actual film, silver might have literally stored your memories. Gold gets the crown. Gold gets the songs. Gold gets locked in vaults like a sleeping dragon. Silver does the work. And today, I want to tell you the story of the most underrated metal in human history. How it helped build the modern world. How it fueled empires, piracy, and the first wave of globalization. And why it might be one of the most important materials for the future of energy and technology. Also, yes, we're going to talk about a real life attempt to buy all the silver on Earth that ended in total chaos. So, why did the West fall in love with the idea that silver kills monsters? Because silver has always been associated with purity. It's bright, it's reflective, it's tied to the moon and art and mythology. And unlike a lot of magic objects in folklore, silver actually does have a strange real-world power. Silver is antimicrobial. Silver ions can disrupt bacteria and stop them from reproducing. That doesn't mean a silver spoon makes you immortal, but it does explain why. For centuries, wealthy families loved silverware, why silver compounds showed up in medicine, and why modern wound dressings can still use silver today. So when old stories needed a pure metal to defeat something cursed, silver was the obvious choice. But here's the twist. Silver didn't just fight fictional monsters. Silver shaped real worlds, empires, wars, inflation, global trade, and financial manias. Let's start with a tiny detail that secretly connects ancient history to your modern life. The chemical symbol for silver is Ag, short for argentum, Latin for silver. That's why you see words like Argent and why Argentina literally got its name from ledges of silver in the region. Now, with language myth busting, people love saying salary comes from silver. At least not directly. Salary traces back to Latin salarium, meant to salt, an essential commodity in Rome. But the vibe of the story is still true in a bigger sense for a huge part of history. Getting paid meant getting paid in now. And silver was the everyday metal of commerce. Gold was for kings. Silver was for the world. And once silver started moving at scale, it didn't just buy things, it rewired the planet. If you want the moment silver became a global engine, you go to a mountain. Cerro Rico, the rich mountain, at Potosi in modern-day Bolivia. In the 1500s, Spain tapped into one of the largest silver sources ever exploited. Potosi became one of the biggest cities in the world, basically overnight, because the mountain was money. And here's the part that matters for modern audience. This was not just mining. This was an industrial-scale extraction machine powered by colonial violence. Spain used forced labor systems, including the manta, that ripped indigenous communities apart. Working conditions were brutal. Mercury was used in refining, poisoning workers and the environment. The mountain produced wealth that traveled across oceans, and human suffering that stayed local. That's the uncomfortable core of this story. The modern global economy didn't appear out of nowhere. It was built in part on silver and on the people who were forced to pull it out of the ground. Now, zoom out. What happens when an empire suddenly floods the world with a massive supply of silver? Prices move. In Europe, this period is often linked to what historians call the price revolution. Centuries, where inflation and economic disruption reshaped societies. Silver didn't just make Spain rich. It also destabilized economies and changed how power worked. But the truly insane part is where that silver went next. Because a huge amount of New World silver didn't stay in Europe. It went west, across the Pacific, on the Manila galleons. This is one of the wildest first globalization stories ever. Spanish ships carried silver from the Americas to Manila, and from there, it flowed into China because China had massive demand for silver as a monetary metal, especially as tax systems and trade favored silver payments. So silver became the bridge, a physical link between mines in the Andes, merchants in Mexico, shipyards in the Philippines, markets in China, and luxury goods moving back the other way, silk, porcelain, spices. You can almost picture it like an ancient supply chain map. And once you see that, you realize something important. Globalization didn't start with the internet. It started with ships and silver. Now let's jump to a piece of metal so famous it basically became a character in Western culture. The Spanish piece of eight. If you've ever seen a pirate movie, you've heard it. Pieces of eight, treasure chests, cutlasses, the whole aesthetic. But this wasn't just pirate cosplay. The Spanish dollar, often called the piece of eight, became one of the first truly global currencies. It circulated everywhere. The Americas, Europe, Asia, it was trusted because it was relatively consistent in silver content, and it was accepted because what else were you going to use that everyone recognized? And here's a fun money mirror detail. The origin of the dollar is debated. One popular explanation is that it evolved from the abbreviation PS for peso, written in a way that merged into an S with a vertical stroke. Another story connects it to the Pillars of Hercules imagery associated with Spanish coinage. Either way, the vibe is the same. The modern financial world still has the fingerprints of silver all over it. Now let's bring this story to America. Because if you're talking to a US audience, this is where silver turns from global trade metal into Wild West myth. In 1859, a massive silver deposit was discovered in Nevada, the Comstock Lode. This helped fuel westward expansion, boom towns, and the entire economy of mining camps that show up in American legend. People imagine the West as gold, gold pans, gold rush, nuggets and rivers. But huge amounts of real wealth moved through silver. And silver wasn't just money. It became politics. Late 1800s America fought bitterly over what money should be. Gold only, or gold and silver together. Materialism. Free silver wasn't a meme. It was a national battle over inflation, debt, farmers, bankers, and who got to survive an economic system. When you hear lines like cross with gold, you're hearing an era where the metal inside a coin wasn't just chemistry. It was power. Okay, deep breath. Because now we pivot from history into the part where silver gets almost supernatural again. Not in folklore, in science. Silver is the most electrically conductive metal. That fact alone explains why silver keeps showing up wherever humans push technology to the edge. Electronics use it in contacts, switches, and specialty components. Solar panels use silver paste in photovoltaic cells. Modern industry consumes silver, meaning a lot of it doesn't just sit in the vaults. It gets dispersed into products. Gold mostly gets stored. Silver gets used. And that difference matters. It's why silver is this strange hybrid, part monetary metal, part industrial material. It can behave like an investment in moments of fear, and like a commodity when factories are booming. Also, remember this silver kills germs thing? That didn't stay in medieval kitchens. Silver compounds have been used historically in medicine. Think silver nitrate and silver-based creams in burn treatment and modern antimicrobial coatings and bandages. Even in water systems, silver ions have been used as a way to limit microbial growth in certain contexts. So the magic of silver is basically chemistry that people noticed before they understood microbiology. Now, if you're still with me, here's where the story turns into a financial thriller. Because in the late 1970s, Two Texas oil billionaires looked at the world and thought, what if we just buy all the silver? The Hunt brothers, Nelson Bunker Hunt and William Herbert Hunt, became the center of one of the most famous commodity manias in modern history. Inflation was raging, trust in money was shaky, and silver looked like a hot asset you could hold when paper felt like a lie. So they started buying and buying and buying and buying. Not just physical silver futures contracts too. Silver prices surged, climbing dramatically and peaking around $50 an ounce in early 1980. People were melting silverware. Lines formed at coin shops. It was euphoria, panic, and speculation all at once. Then the rules changed. Margins increased. Leverage got squeezed. The market turned. And silver collapsed. The crash became so infamous it got its own nickname, Silver Thursday. The Hunts were hit with massive losses. The episode became a warning label on every sure thing trade, even if you're rich, even if you're early, even if you think you can corner a market. Markets can corner you. And I love this part of the story because it reveals what silver really is in the modern world. Silver sits at the intersection of myth, money, and machines. It's a mirror that reflects whatever era you're in. In an age of monsters, it's the pure metal that defeats curses. In an age of empires, it's the bloodstream of global trade. In an age of industry, it's a raw material that turns into wiring, images, and medicine. In an age of green energy, it becomes a bottleneck material because you can't electrify and digitize the wall with vibes. You need atoms, and some atoms are better than others. Now, I'm not telling you to run out and buy silver. This isn't financial advice. It's not a buy now video. This is a look at what's hiding in plain sight video. Because here's the question that sticks with me. If gold is the metal we worship, why is silver the metal we actually depend on? And if the 21st century is going to be built on electricity, solar, grids, air, storage, devices, then the most conductive metal starts to feel less like a historical footnote and more like a strategic material. So I'll leave you with two questions, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. First, if you could only hold one true gold or silver, what would you choose and why? Second, what's the most underrated element or material you think quietly runs the modern world?